Hi, welcome to SS 7.4. This is all about the Cartesian plane. So down at the bottom, if you're ever wondering why it's called the Cartesian plane, it's because this guy, René Descartes, so they took this part of his word and put it in this word because he invented it. So he was a French mathematician and philosopher in the 1500s, I think, and so a brilliant guy that figured out that we could connect the Cartesian plane, points on a graph, to an equation. I need to stop using my mouse. There we go. To an equation, and that also could be charted on a table of values. Okay, so he was the one that figured all of this out, that an equation, algebra, could be converted into analytical geometry. So pretty brilliant guy. And he has this is his quote, "I think, therefore I am." So he was also a bit of a philosopher. If you want to look up Mr. Descartes. Personally, I think he looks much better with sunglasses. So SS 7.4, you need to be able to label the axes. That's the X and the Y axes on a 4-quadrant Cartesian plane, and identify the origin. So the origin is point 0, 0, right in the center where the two axes meet. That's your ordered pair for the origin. And the quadrants are labeled, let's see, 1, they do it with Roman numerals always, 2, 3, and 4. So quadrant 1 is always positive numbers. Both numbers will be positive. So 1, 4. That would land you in quadrant 1. Quadrant 2, your X value is negative and your Y value is positive because you're going to go backwards down the X-axis and then up into the Y-axis. So for example, -3, 7. That would land you in quadrant 2. Quadrant 3 is negative on the Y and negative on the X and negative in the Y. So something like -4, -5 would land you in quadrant 3. And then quadrant 4 is positive on the X and negative on the Y. Make sense? Okay, so we have labeled it, found the axis, found the origins, labeled all the quadrants. Obviously, the orientation is how you turn your plane is going to influence the labeling, so you always need to make sure that you have it with the quadrant 1 up at the top. Okay, if I turned it and had quadrant 1 over here and quadrant 2 here, you would need to reorient it so that it's proper for you. Identify the location of any point in any quadrant. So we're using those integers, integral coordinates. Plot the points of an ordered pair with different scales. So scale just means the axis has different numbers going up the side. So on the next slide you'll see, I think we have a scale of 5, 10, 15, something like that. And so if I wanted to point a 3, I know it's somewhere in there. So sometimes your scale isn't with ones. And then the fun part of Cartesian planes is that you can draw shapes and designs. So here is all that information in one nicely labeled chart. Your x-axis, that's the one we do first, he's the horizontal, like the horizon. The y-axis is the point that we plot second, and it is vertical, up and down. Your quadrant names, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Point 0, 0 is the origin right here. And they've plotted point P at 3, 5. So we're going 3 on the x-axis, so in the house, and then 5 up the stairs. Okay, if we wanted to plot something in the third quadrant, we would have to go negative, so we're going to go -5 and then -7. That would get us into the third quadrant. Let's plot something in the fourth quadrant. So we're going in the house, positive, we'll go to 10, and -8. That will get us in the third quadrant. Let's plot something in the second quadrant. So we're going negative on the x-axis. Let's go -8, and then we're going to go +5. You don't have to write positive like +5. It's just understood. If it has no sign, it's positive. All right, I'm in Smart Notebook, and I just dragged a grid on so that we could see our coordinate plane. And so I'm going to add the x-axis, and I'll just use a line, a red line. Your x-axis is horizontal. And I will add the y-axis. The y is the vertical axis. And I'd like to label these x and y. And so at this very center point where the two intersect, that is called the origin. And that's where we always start plotting our points. And the origin is, it's 0, 0. Oh dear. Sorry about that. Okay, so that point is 0, 0. And so if we were going to plot the point 4, 1, and we put our plotted points in brackets, we always use the x-axis first, and that is that first value in the ordered pairs. Notice they're called ordered pairs because order is very important here. You cannot do the 1 first. You have to do the x value first, which is the 4. So we start at the origin, and we're going 4 to the right because our 4 is positive. Okay, so far we are there. And then it says to go 1 on the y-axis. So that's a positive 1, so we move up, and here is our address, 4, 1. So back in grade 6 you learned exactly what I just showed you, and I think I remember saying on that video that you were only going to use quadrant 1 because we were only using positive values. 4 and 1 are both positive numbers. But in grade 7 we talk about integral coordinates, which just means we're using integers. So integers are negative numbers, like -1, -5. So if our ordered pair contains negative numbers, it just means we're going the opposite direction on the coordinate plane. So our x value here is -1, so we're going to go horizontally to the -1. And then our y value is -5, so we're going to go -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and here we are at 1, 5. So our quadrants 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now that you're using integers or integral coordinates, you can add in those negative numbers and use all the quadrants. So what do you think the blue dot, what's its address? So we start at the origin and we go -1, -2, -3, and then we're going to go, let's jot that x-axis address down, and then we're going to go -1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, -3, -4. And let's do the orange dot. Okay, so we're going positive 1, 2, 3, and then -1, 2, 3, 4. Positive 3, -4. All right, this was fun on Smart Notebook. You should try it out more often. Quite cool. Here's the fun part of Cartesian planes. So this student drew a picture of Eeyore using all of these coordinates down here. So they have the, I think it says hair, his ear, his nose, and they've charted out all the quadrants. Sometimes you might also, it might be a mystery, they don't label it hair and ear and nose. They might just say lift your pencil. So you're going to draw from here to here, and here to here, and here to here, and here to here. Get all these little line segments in, and then it says lift your pencil, and then start at the next set of values. So we're going to do the other ear. Right? And then Harry Potter, same thing, it's just a series of lines. So maybe they plotted for the glasses, you know, their points on the line all the way around, and they said in the instructions just join that to make the circle. And again, everything else is just a series of line segments. So this is a fun activity. This is something you could do for your assessment. It would definitely show me that you know how to plot points in all the quadrants. If you wanted to take a picture and do a line drawing of it, maybe they took Harry Potter and they put it up against the window and laid their graph over top so they could plot some points that were generally in the right spot and made a coordinate plane picture out of it, and then you could have some instructions down below of what plotted points you used.